We're live. All right. Good evening and welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Our Turf Football Podcast, the
I
college
know it was Wear
edition.
Blue Day. Nobody told me to wear blue. Y'all match.
Oh, I just threw this on real quick. It's like, let me find something to wear today. Here we go. Anyway, you got your red on, so you get it. Anyways. Go blue. Anyways, okay. Hi, how are we today? We've got Kate with us in her red. We've got Michelle also in her blue. How's everybody? Michelle, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good for a Tuesday. Or wait,
It's a Wednesday.
Or Wednesday. See, that's what happens. I only know football days, so if it's not Saturday or a Sunday or a Monday or Thursday, I have no idea what day it is.
I can get with that. I agree with that. Kate, how are you?
Well, I thought I was doing pretty good for a Tuesday until Michelle just told me it was Wednesday. Now I'm all discombobulated. If you are watching us on Facebook or Twitter, we love you. We appreciate you. But if you come over here to YouTube, hi, Kristen, you can comment with us. We can see your comments and your questions, and we can interact a little more. So if you're on the other socials, head on over to the YouTube.
Yes, we'd love to see you there so we can chit-chat.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Kim. And we can do stuff like that. so let's get
careful
into it.
what you say.
Yeah, please.
We try to be PG. We're not putting you on the screen unless it's a PG comment, but we may comment on your comment without showing it if it's not PG.
Kristen, you're absolutely right. Those are the best days. I got you.
Yes, they are.
It's almost every day, though, right? It's Thursday.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be Black Friday, Saturday for college football, Sunday, Monday.
I exclude Friday. I refuse to watch them on Friday because they need to leave that to the high schoolers. Let them have their day.
Yes, agreed. Yep. Friday Night Lights, always sacred. Let's go because they got to have their shine. Yep. Perfect. All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about today, so let's get into it. There was an upset this weekend. You guys picked a great game to talk about. LSU, Texas A&M. Let's get into it. Final score 38-23, Texas A&M. I myself was kind of surprised. I did not stay glued to that game as we were doing other things. Homecoming, but I did kind of keep an eye on it and was very surprised by the results. Kate, what did you think about this one?
I expected it to be a much closer game. That 15 points is a lot, and I expected it to be a lot closer. I got a soft spot for LSU just because, Jarvis Landry and Odell were on my Cleveland team for a while, and they got me on, and I like purple, so I like Washington. It's a thing. I thought they'd play a little better or have a harder time. That Texas A&M would have a harder time on offense against that LSU defense, but not so much.
Yeah, no. And speaking of that LSU defense, it just fizzled. It was just, I don't know what happened there. There was some kind of breakdown. You know how you make halftime adjustments? Adjustments were not made. Michelle, what were your thoughts on the game?
I was surprised. I thought it was going to be a good game. I think it's the white helmets, though. I don't like the LSU white helmets. I like to see the gold helmets. I have to make something up, but they just totally collapsed in the second half. I mean, LSU, I thought it was going to be a pretty good game, and then all of a sudden, LSU disappeared. The Texas A&M defense, they harassed Garrett all game. It was, it was uncharacteristic. I was very surprised, but I enjoyed it. I love upsets, even though I wasn't going for them, but I do. I switch out during the game. If it's about to be an upset, then I go ahead and switch out. But I enjoyed every minute. But it's I'm kind of, I wouldn't say happy, but the Aggies, this is the team that everybody's been expecting them to have the last couple of years. And finally they're there. Like every year, it's like LSU. I mean Texas A&M, what ATM as we call them. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They finally made a big win. They had a big win. They 7-1. They're top of the division. So this may be their year. Maybe they get to the championship. Who knows? But right now they're looking pretty good, and they're coming away with wins. And that was a big win for them on Saturday.
Well, they outscored LSU. Texas did 31-6 in the second half.
Yeah,
that's huge. That's huge for two schools that were fairly evenly ranked. Two SEC schools. It makes a mess of the SEC standings. I think everybody got lost now in the SEC.
But that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. I think that's an absolutely great thing that you want to see the parity. You want to see teams fighting for a position. You don't want to see anybody run away with it. In the past, it's either going to be Georgia or Alabama. We don't know who it's going to be this time. And I love it.
That's right. I love that too. See, Kristen feels you, Michelle, on the underdogs. You always got to go with the underdogs every now and then, and I enjoy that. And then looking at A&M's schedule, it overall looks pretty winnable, and you just got to win out, right? And if that's the case, I mean, their biggest game obviously is going to be Texas at the last game of the year. But I mean, if they keep winning, they could be right there.
They're ranked 10 in the AP poll and 11 in the coaches poll. They just got to stay in the top 12. They don't even have to win the SEC championship. They just got to stay in the top 12 to get a chance in the playoffs. Anything can happen in these playoffs.
That's right. So playoffs.
So that's my favorite. That playoffs.
But Coach Elko is. Early favorites for the coach of the year if he keeps going.
Exactly. So let's see. The rankings, there really weren't. I'm taking a peek at them right now because we talked about Texas A&M moving up to 10. They moved up 4 spots along with Notre Dame, actually. They both moved up 4 spots. Notre Dame is 8 in the AP, and Texas A&M now 10th in the AP. Alabama. Yeah. Coming up there, 14.
These SEC schools need to be afraid of A&M. They're 7-1. They're on a 7-game winning streak. They're 5-0 in the conference. They're the only undefeated team in the conference. So they may very well not only win the SEC, they may get a bye, which would be something. It's going to be the top-ranked team that's a conference champ. So even if Georgia stays up there at 2 or 3, I have to think if they win the SEC championship, that's going to boost them up there in the rankings. But either way, that bye goes to the conference champions. So it's a very interesting SEC this year. And I'm with you, Michelle. I like the parity. I hate it when it's the same team every year.
I hate it. I love it. I really do. Unless it's my team, but I don't have a team in the SEC, but I love the fact that there's a slight possibility that someone else may be there besides Georgia or Alabama or even LSU, because those are the 3 teams, and with the additions to the conference, I think that has something to do with it. And of course, we know all of the movement with the college athletes. So, and then, Jimbo Fisher was supposed to be the savior at Texas A&M, but, Elko has them going in the direction that they thought they were going to go when they got Fisher from Florida State. So,
yeah. Sonia and I were talking a little bit yesterday about the Big Ten. Right now the Big Ten championship is is Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana are the 3 top schools. Ohio State and Michigan wouldn't even be in the championship game if the championship was this weekend. So we're going to see. I like it. The additions to these conferences, Oregon being a big player in the Big Ten now, and all of the shakeups that happened as a result of that. And now we have this new playoff system. I think you're right. I think we're going to see some different teams winning their conferences, which should make for better football. I hope.
Well, I am a believer of Indiana. We talked about them last week, and I'm like, if they real, they're going to have to beat. We talked about this last game being a big game for them. No problem. Listen, I'm on the bandwagon. Indiana, let's go. I don't have my rally towel, but just act like I'm good. And I only say this slightly, Indiana, because I'm gonna switch out because as soon as Oregon gets back on the field, then I'll be cheering for them anyway. But right now I'm on the bandwagon. I've watched all their games. I've been watching them every week because I want to see. I want to see. I have to see them to see if I believe in them. And right now they've made a believer out of me. So I'm excited to watch them.
So they put up 31 points against Washington, and that was their lowest points put up in a game so far this year.
Wow.
They've been doing 40s, 50s. They had a 77-point game. Okay, that was Western Illinois. But they put up 40. They put up 56 against a Nebraska team that gave Ohio State fits last weekend.
That's right.
2 weeks. You know what I mean? They put up 41 on Northwestern. I mean, they played some quality opponents this year, and they built a very nice resume. So apparently Indiana is not just a basketball school. I'll have to stop saying that about them.
That's
and
right.
apparently Indiana is more than just Caitlin Clark.
Yes. Maybe. That's a whole different podcast.
That is a whole different podcast and literally a whole different ball game.
Yeah, but they're gonna, they'll face Michigan State this year, and even though Michigan State is down, we still don't believe Indiana people. Even though I say I'm behind you, you're still gonna have to beat those name programs.
They got Michigan in 2 weeks. They got Michigan State, and then they got Michigan. And while it's not the same old Michigan, it's still a tough place to play. And then they got Ohio State. If they win out, they're gonna prove they belong in that Big Ten championship game. And then if they can beat Ohio State, because Ohio State tends to get in their heads, they're one of those schools where it's a thing. But if they win out, Oregon better watch out. I might pick Indiana to beat Oregon because.
Yeah. Well, anytime
they shouldn't be that good.
Anytime a team dominates a conference like Ohio State, they're going to get in your head. And so you're going to see that team. And like I said before, we were talking about some of the other teams. Those are the teams you have to beat to convince us that you're ready. And if you can't do that.
And then they have the schedule to do it. It's the nice thing for someone like Indiana and even A&M. They've got tough games on their schedule that they need to win. There are some other schools in the top 25 that don't have anybody difficult on their schedule. And I'm like, and that's why you're not climbing up to 12, because you're fine, but you don't play anybody that's going to prove to Michelle that you should be in the playoff.
That's right.
Exactly. Michelle, it all goes through Michelle. Like we said, Michelle just needs to be one of the voters. Just bottom line.
I'm trying to find out how I can vote. I need to vote. I really do want to vote. And if Indiana, I'm just letting you know right now, if I was voting, I would have you in the top 12. I definitely would have you in the top 12 right now.
Yeah. They have the same situation going on as the U. Just keep winning.
Just win, baby.
Just win, baby. Let your record stand for itself. Just win.
I don't care where you rank. You just need to be in the top 12. That's where you need to be.
Yep.
Exactly. Sure. Exactly. Keep winning.
Sonia, a conference that doesn't have anybody in the top 12 or the top 25 might just be Conference USA.
Yes.
We talked about the MAC last week, and there were some fun MAC games this weekend, but there's a couple really good teams in Conference USA. There are some teams that everyone's heard of: Liberty, Sam Houston, Florida International, UTEP, stuff like that. Sam Houston 7-2, but it's back to our earlier conversation of who do they play. They're not going to crack the top of the rankings because they play other schools. They play MAC schools and Conference USA schools, but that does not mean they're not playing good football.
No, not at all. I mean, there's good football to be played everywhere, right? And it's not that these conferences put out trash. They get draft picks. They get people drafted from them. I mean, I kind of look back at some of the Conference USA who was from there. And since realignment has happened, but, I think Brett Favre played for a Conference USA team at one point. Chad Pennington, Randy Moss, they played for Marshall. And at that point, they were in Conference USA. So, I mean, granted, has there been anybody recently? No, but that doesn't mean anything. That does not mean anything. They're still very good. Yeah.
Absolutely. These are, I say it all the time, smaller schools, FCS programs, smaller conferences. They don't get all of the glory and they don't get all the recognition, but they produce NFL caliber players. And so, and a lot of those players are the ones that last longer. And why? Probably because they've been there all 4 years on their team. They have more experience. They've played longer. You know what I'm saying? They've been in a system.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks and those type of people come from some of these schools. So I love watching these games, or sometimes some of the good games that's on in the weekend that they're not going to talk about, and you turn to them and it's like awesome. So, you know,
it's
Jacksonville
good
State
football. It's evenly matched.
Yep.
There are games that go down to the wire, and you know, we all three of us say this all the time. I just want to see good football. It doesn't have to be big names.
Literally.
It doesn't have to be pro or college or whatever. I want to see a really well played game, and you're going to see that if you can find a Conference USA matchup on your television dial.
Well, you know,
that's right.
Being the Florida girl that I am, and Florida International is part of this conference, so you know we keep an eye. We keep one of our eyes on all our Florida teams. So we're always pulling for them. And like you said, you know, Sam Houston and Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, you know, they have those. Louisiana Tech. You know, they have some, just my Kennesaw State. They haven't even been around that long. But now
they haven't.
Right. And now they're playing football. So over there in Georgia, they have a very beautiful campus. I love them. Love their campus over in Kennesaw State. Outside of Atlanta, we call everything Atlanta, but it's not really in Atlanta. But it's close enough. So
yeah, they had a kid drafted last year. And you know, that NCAA college game that they have out now that everybody's been playing. So Greg, my husband, plays with Kennesaw State. And so he develops that team. Yes, exactly. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it's a fun one. And you know, they have the offensive player of the week this week. That's Davis Bryson. He is redshirted sophomore, but he's a quarterback. And you know, Lisa, where are you? You love those quarterbacks. They actually got their first win this season, and they took down Liberty. And that was a huge win for them. Like Michelle said, they're kind of new to Conference USA anyway, so they're still really kind of developing their program. But I think this is a sign of things to come. So they upset Liberty 27-24. He connected on a 41-yard touchdown strike to Christian Moss to open up the scoring. He was an 8 for 8. He's from Woodbridge, Virginia. And everybody knows that that's kind of a pretty hot spot for football as well. So they're doing great. There's lots of talents. Oh, look, there's Lisa. Hi, Lisa. She loves her quarterbacks.
Of course she does. And you know what I love? Because they win championships.
You love
Defense. And so when you have an upset like you did against Liberty, of course, you're going to dominate the weekly honors in football. And for Kennesaw State, the defensive back Tyler Halem, I believe I have his name right. Don't get me Halem if I don't have it right, but I know because he had a interception, a very acrobatic interception in the second quarter that made the top 10 of Sports Center. And that, as a football player, that's what you want to do. Okay.
Yeah.
If you do not get, you want to be a top 10, you want to have a top 10 play. You want to see them calling your name. And then this is a program who's not often on ESPN or they're showing their highlights. So for him to make that top 10, but you know, lockdown coverage, you know, hey, that may get you drafted. He's only a redshirt junior. He'll be one more year. And one of the top cornerbacks in Conference USA. So shout out to Tyler Halem. On his top 10 play on Sports Center and his defensive player of the week for their upset over Liberty.
And again, Conference USA recognizes the power of that kind of an upset. And it was Kennesaw State's first win of the season. Now they're 1-6. Special teams player of the week honors goes to their place kicker, Austin Welch. Their punter, their kickoff guy was injured. So he had to do the kickoffs. He had to kick 6 of those, had 3 touchbacks. He is 11 for 11 on the season. He's one of only 4 kickers in the FBS that is perfect for field goals on the season. He connected on a 31-yarder early and then a 41-yarder late in the game that ended up being the difference and the game winner. So shout out to Austin Welch, redshirt junior from Georgetown, Kennesaw State, the special teams player of the week in Conference USA. I think it's great in these smaller conferences, or what we think of as these smaller conferences, when they recognize the effort and how much work Kennesaw had to do to get that first win over a team like Liberty. It's a much better team. They've been in that conference longer, more familiar with it. And to find that there was an offensive, defensive, and special teams player all on that team, it's that kind of an effort, right? If you can get all three phases of the game together, anybody can beat anybody.
Well, anytime you make an upset like that, you're definitely going to dominate the conference honors that week.
You should.
You should. Unless someone else just had a very outstanding game, but an upset like that usually is going to get you those honors.
Yeah,
exactly. Such a great game, such a good team, and a team defining kind of win. And so, this is kind of good if you ride the momentum on it. So shout out coach, shout out KSU Owls. Hooty hooty hoo! That's what they say. That's their little thing. Hooty hoo. I
did not just do. Okay,
I did. That's the thing. Hooty hoo. I don't know why, but that's just what they do. They're the Owls.
All right.
Perfect. Okay, so Lisa wants to get back to talking about the U. Okay, hang on.
Why, Lisa? They just have to win.
Just win, baby. That's all we got to talk about, Lisa. Just win. Here's the thing about the U. Let's talk about the U for a minute, even though that's not. The U right now has me a little worried, okay?
Uh-oh.
I love our quarterback. I think he is phenomenal. I think that at some point we're gonna play someone who has a great defense. We're gonna play a team that's gonna be able to slow our offense down. What I want to know and what I need to happen is, can our defense keep us in the game so that he can create his magic? When we play a good team, we have not played the top teams in our conference yet. We haven't met that challenge. So far, he's answering all of the calls. We've been able to come back. And I think that's what's kind of keeping them where they are, because they haven't played the schedule. They haven't played that top tier team yet. And so we need to see them be able to beat Clemson, or even though and Clemson's not on the schedule this year. So who are they going to play? And I think this game coming up on Saturday against Duke is going to be their biggest test so far of the season.
Yeah, they got Duke this week, then Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. I hope Duke gives them a game, because they need to be tested. They need to know where they're at, because otherwise they're going to make the playoffs and then just get blown out. You know what I mean? They need,
Well, I think Duke will give them a game. No one's talking about Duke, but Duke,
Duke's 6-2.
They're 6-2. I'm a Tar Heel fan in basketball, so I can't even talk about Duke. But I think that they are going to give us a pretty decent game, as they have in the past. And so again, this is probably the biggest game outside of maybe Virginia Tech, because I knew that game was going to be tough. California, they were where they ranked. I think they were maybe not ranked, but close to it when we played them. So, Louisville's not Louisville, but they haven't played anybody that makes you say, this team is really good.
Yeah,
we're winning, and we look a lot better than we have in the past for us. But I'm just curious to see. And like I said before, the first thing that's on our mind is not the playoffs. We have to do something that we have not done, and that's win the ACC. So that is the focus, and hopefully that they can do, because we've never done that.
Yeah, well, right now Clemson is sitting atop the ACC with a 5-0 conference record. Miami's 4-0 because they've only had 4 conference games. SMU's 4-0. Pitt is 3-0. So it'll, again, just win, baby. It'll sort itself out. If you win out, you've got the record that'll make you top in the conference. You'll get to the conference championship and go from there. I don't know that a bye does you any favors. I almost feel like you should play that game against, if you end up being 5th against the number 11 or 12 team, to mentally look at Lisa, please.
Well, here's the thing.
We are a 22-point favorite. Okay, on paper, there's a lot of really good teams, but you got to play the game. And if you go into it thinking, I'm a 22-point favorite, I don't even have to try, that's when people sneak up on you.
Well, here's the thing. Miami can very well finish undefeated. They beat Duke, then they have Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Syracuse. They can pretty much go into the playoffs undefeated without having a really big test that they'll have, until they get to the ACC championship.
And they'd probably, if they face Clemson and beat them, I think that would be a statement game for them. That would be a big test for them.
If they get into the championship game is going to be a tremendous accomplishment for these Hurricanes. Let's say that, number one. And then if they win that, again, a tremendous accomplishment. So, but what's going to happen is our fans, us, we're going to want more. Of course, we're going to forget that this was their first time winning the ACC and this was their first time getting a championship. Now you're there, and we need another title. That's what we want. That's what's going to happen.
And Lisa, you need to pay more attention to the show, because the three of us have predicted that a quarterback is not going to win the Heisman this year. That it's going to be another position. So slow your roll on your Heisman winning quarterback down there.
At least that's what we hope anyway.
That's what we hope.
Yeah.
It's Travis Hunter, baby. Quarterback,
Cam is our man. Well, he's mine anyway.
Yeah. I got no issue. Yeah. Well, Oregon's got a nice quarterback too. We might have to have a conversation about the two of them, but it should be a non-quarterback.
Yeah.
If it's just the best football player.
If it's not Travis Hunter, and I keep saying that, if it's not Travis Hunter, because nothing has changed in my mind about Travis Hunter being the Heisman Trophy winner. If it's not him, then, and it's not the running back at Boise State, who they're not going to give it to, then it's going to be a quarterback. And if it's going to be a quarterback, then Cam is the person. Although he didn't he didn't have his numbers last week, but that shouldn't stop him.
I agree. I like your logic, Michelle. I think that is very well thought out. And I agree. Oregon's quarterback we might have to chat about him, because, Quinn Edwards was our guy for a little bit and he's tended to fall off, but might have to take a peek at Oregon. Yes.
I mean, Lisa, Dylan Gabriel's got
feels Cam is 3 times better. Whatever.
All right. We're not biased at all. Speaking of trophies, did a little bit of research this week, and I think every week we're going to spotlight some of these trophies for these rivalry games. Some of these are hilarious. Some of them are serious, meaningful. There's like history behind these. We talked a little bit last weekend. Ohio played Miami. Miami won 30-20 in what they called the Battle of the Bricks. And they asked us about the Battle of the Bricks. So I went and looked it up. All right. So here's the thing. They made it up. These two schools have been playing each other in Ohio since 1908, and they had a rivalry, and they got tired of just calling it a rivalry game. So in 2002, someone said, we'll call it the Battle of the Bricks. But it's also not just football. If they play each other in tennis or basketball or field hockey, it's a Battle of the Bricks this weekend. Miami doesn't get anything if they win. And if Ohio University wins, the team gets coffee mugs with the game stats on it.
Not even a bag of bricks.
There's not even a brick involved. I don't even know where the name came from. Another silly one is the Oregon. So there are, most of these are for 2 schools. There are 3 that I'll tell you about that are actually statewide trophies for the best. There's one for Florida, one for Utah, and I forget the other one right now. But in Oregon, when Oregon plays Oregon State, they play for the Platypus Trophy, because they're the beavers and the ducks, and a platypus looks like a cross between a beaver and a duck. And so the Platypus Trophy was born in 1959. They played for that until 1961. And then when Oregon took it home, they lost it. And nobody could find it until 2005. And then it miraculously showed up 40 years later. And now it goes home with the president of the Alumni Association to make sure it shows up for the game the following year. Completely ridiculous. But the one that I always thought was kind of fun, and I didn't really know the history of it, was the one, it's called Floyd the Pig, for the game between Iowa and the University of Iowa and the University of Minnesota. This rivalry started back in the 1930s, and it is actually based on racism. Minnesota had a black running back named Ozzie Simmons. And after the game that year, 1934, a lot of people felt that the Iowa players were hitting him dirty, were hitting him cheap, were piling on him after plays. At that time, the University of Minnesota had 50 African-American students and thought they were pretty progressive. They still did not. The women's school was segregated. Their nursing program was segregated for another 10 years. There was a lot going on. And a couple years into it, in order to there were threats of riots. There were threats of lynchings. This was the 1930s in the middle of nowhere. The governor of Minnesota made a bet with the governor of Iowa and said, listen, if our team wins, I will give you my prized hog. And so for years, it was an actual live pig. And the governor's name happened to be Floyd. And it is now a statue of a pig. It is called Floyd the Pig, and it goes between the two schools. It's now 2024. We are in I would like to think, a much more enlightened time. But it was interesting to me to just read the story. If you look up Floyd of Rosedale, you can see the trophy. You can read the story about it and kind of see how it evolved. Ozzie Simmons did everything he could to try to downplay the racial aspect. He tried to say they were hitting me dirty and I was getting cheap shots, but that was because he was the best running back in the country of any color. And so at the time, he tried to play it off like it's just because I'm a really good player, because nobody wants those kind of tensions and things to escalate. But I found an article with an interview of him 50 years later. They talked to him in the 1980s about what was going on. And he's like, no, things were said, racial slurs were like, it was definitely a racist thing, but that you didn't want to stir things up. They were trying to find a way to bring people together even that long ago. So I just thought that was a very interesting story for the history of Floyd of Rosedale, the pig. But there are some that are just, I don't get them. The golden hat, Texas versus Oklahoma, is like a big, seriously gold cowboy hat that somebody puts on. Notre Dame and USA play for something called the jeweled shillelagh. So like if you've ever seen a cartoon of a leprechaun, they have that stick where the stick is like bent and it's got a handle on it. That's what it is. And they like wave it around. And there's axes and jugs. And I still don't have a good feeling for the gold pants. I'm still not sure I understand the Ohio State, Michigan gold pants. But I think I'm going to look into some more of these.
Yep.
Like I said, that platypus trophy in Oregon, man, there's a thing called the Beehive Boot, which goes to the best D1 FBS school in the state of Utah. The Florida Cup goes to the Florida champion. So that's between the Gators, the Seminoles, and the U. There's a Commander-in-Chief's trophy that goes to either Army, Navy, or Air Force. And then there's actually a Michigan MAC trophy that is battled out between Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, and Western Michigan. Apparently, your name can't just be Michigan. You got to be directional. So there are three where it's supposed to go to like the state champion. The Florida Cup is the only one that's where they're all in Power 5 conferences. The rest of them were in some of the smaller conferences. But it's still kind of fun. And in the one for Utah, the Beehive Boot, it's actually an 100-year-old Revolutionary War era boot. I don't know how it smells. But if there's a tie, all of the Utah in-state media get a ballot in the mail and they get to vote on who they want to give the boot.
Shut up.
Seriously. It's a vote on who to give the boot.
Oh my gosh.
Kristen, I looked at the platypus trophy. It's not even cute. Like Floyd looks more like an armadillo than a pig, but the platypus, it's on this long base and then it's this golden stretched out. It can't be this tall, but it's like this long. It's not even cute. I'm like, get him a stuffed animal one or something. But they take these things very seriously, some of these trophies. So I'm going to look up some more of them this week, and maybe the next few weeks of the season, I'll see if I can find some more interesting stories on where these things came
from. I love it. Well, as always, thanks y'all for coming and hanging out with us. But it's time for us to go so that we can get ready for more football tomorrow night. Yay! Look for another game poll coming up either tomorrow or Friday, but I'm thinking tomorrow so we can do it into Friday.
Yeah, and, this is a big weekend. Ohio State and Penn State, Illinois got Minnesota, Oregon at Michigan, Florida, Georgia. There's a lot of games on here. We're going to have to talk about.
We are.
We'll have to talk about what we're going to put on the poll for people to pick from. Maybe we'll just pick the game this week. Find somebody we haven't watched that's in a meaningful game.
Yeah, that might be kind of cool. All right, you guys. Well, we will see you next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat place. Thank y'all so much as always for watching. Bye.